Hey everyone. Good morning. Anybody home? I'm a couple minutes late. Because I needed to tend to my mental health this morning. And often that means tending to my physical health, and often that means getting exercise. So I was doing my best to squeeze in a quick workout and a walk this morning. Helps me manage my mental health. I found it to be particularly useful in times of deeper stress. Oh, look, we got a good group here. We got Tori and Brandy and Tammy and Joyce and Matt and Brittany and Clark and Aurelia. Hey, guys. Tell me, I am curious, tell me what you are observing in yourself during this time of quarantine. What have you noticed yourself doing, either emotionally or like compulsively or just naturally doing? I'm very curious about that. I've been noticing some things about myself here lately. Good morning, everyone. One thing I've noticed as time has passed is that I went, in the early days, I felt more acutely anxious about the state of the world and what's happening and the case numbers and the number of deaths and paying attention to the stats and the data. And I just had a lot more anxiety. And I think some of that has settled in to more of a withdrawal, more of a withdrawn state. Of just not been as energetic or creative or active on my personal social media or whatever. And I've noticed, still having squirrel brain at times, me too, a great difficulty focusing still. Same. Yeah, I'm going to press like on that because same. Another thing I've noticed that I've naturally begun tending more, just like tending to my plants and tending to my roses, and I got a sourdough starter and I'm tending to that. And I really, really liked, if you guys read Chad's Facebook post, what it was from yesterday or the day before, maybe. He called it, what did he call it? No, I'm not going to recall. It basically akin to pulling in and controlling what you can. He said that more eloquently than I am right now. Okay, I'm feeling angsty, Aurelia says. I want to wish this whole thing away. Yep. Okay, I'm noticing that too. Yep, some angst, acutely anxious as we're opening stuff up. Okay, same, Jana. I'm feeling anxious. Some more of that acute anxiety, which had died down. And now when I'm thinking about, like, is it safe to open up yet? Same. Constant irritation in a very dissociated state. Yes. For me, anxiety will often manifest as irritability. I don't know if that's what happens to you, but for me, if I notice myself being snippy, it's most likely because I'm anxious about something. Mental Health Monday. Yeah. Well, what day is it? It's Wednesday, I think. What day is it? I don't know. What else? More squirrel brains. Yeah. So I'm on this idea this morning of being the observer or the watcher. I got to thinking about it yesterday. because I was in the car with my kids, and my older daughter, who will occasionally, particularly in the car, as kids will do sometimes, want to have a deep conversation in the car. So we were talking about the afterlife, and we were talking about like comparing some different theories about the afterlife. Like she's been reading a lot of Greek and Egyptian mythology. She's really into the world mythologies. And so we were talking about various perspectives from different cultures on the afterlife, and what are we really. And I was sharing with her yesterday that I think, now this may sound a little unorthodox to some of you, but we're all in community together and we can believe different things. I've been noticing. Well, I'm sorry, I got distracted by a comment here. I'm trying to keep track. Oh yeah, okay, I'll come back. So Blue wanted to talk about the afterlife, and I was saying that I believe that our true selves are made of God's stuff, and are made not only in the image of God, but created out of the same dust of God and the same imagination of God. And, you know, some people call it spirit, some people call it energy, some people call it consciousness. And I was saying that I tend to think that when our physical bodies die, because we aren't our physical bodies, but when they are done, because they're temporary, we go back to our true self of being God stuff, which is spirit, energy, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. So then we had to talk about what's consciousness. And I was saying to her, well, I mean, how do you describe this to a 9-year-old? It's hard for a 38-year-old to understand and conceptualize of what consciousness is. So I was doing my best to explain, like, the consciousness is the part of you that's able to witness everything else. The consciousness is the watcher or the observer, and various mystics and contemplatives have called it various things. So I was thinking about being a contemplative and being the observer and being the watcher or the witness. And as we do that, we're able to sort of settle into, we're able to settle into a more contemplative lifestyle in which we're able to watch ourselves. We're able to non-judgmentally, non-dualistically look and see, what is it that I'm doing? How am I responding to this anxiety? How am I coping with this trauma? And I'm naturally I'm trying to tend to things that I can tend to. Chad's word was shrink your world down. That was it. Shrink your world down. And like, I'm shrinking my world down to a sourdough starter and some rose bushes. And, I can take care of my kids. And these are the things that I can control. And these are the things that I can engage with and conceptualize and wrap my head around. And I can't really control anything else outside of my own domain. So I'm shrinking my world down and I'm observing myself doing that, because I'm able to be the watcher and the observer, which always brings me back to Merton. Always brings me back to my homeboy, Thomas Merton, whom I adore. And this book, I should have mentioned this book the other day when I was talking about all the books. New Seeds of Contemplation by Thomas Merton. And I just wanted to read you a few little passages in hopes that you might be buoyed and encouraged and spurred toward further into your contemplative journey by some of this. So to begin, I really love, so this book opens up with an essay. This is a book of essays, and the first one is entitled, What is Contemplation? And here's what Merton says. Now, disclaimer, Merton does a thing that drives me absolutely batty. And it's because he grew up in a different cultural time than we are in. But he does this thing that makes my teeth just grind. And that is, he refers to humanity or humankind as men. Okay, I hate that. That's what he does. Please know that when he says men, what he means is everybody. Okay, there are better words. He didn't know them yet. Contemplation is the highest expression of man's, humankind's, intellectual and spiritual life. It is that life itself, fully awake, fully active, fully aware that it is alive. It is spiritual wonder. It is spontaneous awe at the sacredness of life, of being. It is gratitude for life, for awareness, and for being. It is a vivid realization of the fact that life and being in us proceed from an invisible, transcendent, and infinitely abundant source. Contemplation is, above all, awareness of the reality of that source. It knows the source, obscurely, inexplicably, but with a certitude that goes beyond, both beyond reason and beyond simple faith. For contemplation is a kind of spiritual vision to which both reason and faith aspire by their very nature, because without it, they must always remain incomplete. The highest expression of humankind's intellectual and spiritual life, he says, is contemplation. Here he says more. In other words, then contemplation reaches out to the knowledge and even to the experience of the transcendent and inexpressible God. It knows God by seeming to touch him. He refers to the divine in the masculine. I tend to refer to the divine in a gender neutral, so I'll sub pronouns here. To touch God, and just know that that's my addendum. Or rather, it knows God as if it had been invisibly touched by God who has no hands, but who is pure reality and the source of all that is real. Hence, contemplation is a sudden gift of awareness, an awakening to the real within all that is real, which is what we become attuned to when we are able to access that part of us, the consciousness, the watcher, the observer, the witness consciousness, the part of us that is able to be connected to the real behind the real, the tangible, the things that we can touch with our hands and taste with our tongues and smell with our noses, etc., etc. A vivid awareness of infinite being at the roots of our own limited being. Okay? A vivid awareness of infinite being at the roots of our own limited being. An awareness of our contingent reality as received, as a present from God, as a free gift of love. Contemplation is the response to a call from God who has no voice and yet who speaks in everything that is, and who most of all speaks in the depths of our own being. For we ourselves are words of God, that we are words that are meant to respond to God, to answer to God, to echo God, and even some way to contain God and signify God. Contemplation is this echo. It is a deep resonance in the inmost center of our spirit, in which our very life loses its separate voice and resounds with the majesty and the mercy of the hidden and living one, who answers God's self in us, and this answer is divine life, divine creativity, making all things new. So he so poetically describes what contemplation is and what the goal is, which is a goal of being and not necessarily doing. And I wonder if we're able to access that contemplative consciousness, and if we're able to lean into that being aware of the real behind the real. And I was thinking also this, yesterday, I guess, as I was reading the lectionary, which for this week, the lectionary gospel is John 14, right? Yeah, 14. In which that's the part where Christ says, I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I'll come again and take you to myself. And he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And if you know me, you'll know my Father also. And he says, do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? Do you not believe that I am in the divine and the divine is in me? The divine who dwells in me does its works. And I believe that that's an invitation for us to come awake to that consciousness, the consciousness of the divine inside of us, of the spark of divine imagination and divine creativity and divine reality, divine intelligence and imagination that are, as Merton says, at the core of our own souls. He says that in a different part, at the core of our own souls. So that's just what I'm thinking about and what I'm hoping that I can access today as I'm doing my tending and as I'm observing things around me, myself, my kids, the people around me. I just want to leave you with a couple of other tiny little quotes from Merton. Merton says, the only true joy on earth is to escape from the prison of our own false self and to enter by love into union with the life who dwells and sings within the essence of every creature and in the core of our own souls. The secret of my identity is hidden in the love and mercy of God, but whatever is in God is really identical to God. For God's infinite simplicity admits no division and no distinction. Therefore, I cannot hope to find myself anywhere except in God. I just want to check comments here. We can discuss as we're checking in together on what we've been experiencing. Brittany says she's unapologetic rest. Ooh, yeah. Unapologetic rest. Constant grief and anxiety. Yeah, same. Solidarity. Snacking more, says Tiffany. Yeah, like out of boredom or I don't know, tending. Yeah. I feel fatigued a lot. Just generally tired. Just generally tired. And I'm learning to just observe that non-judgmentally and rest if I can, or put off rest if I have to. And not try to figure out a why for that. It's very tempting for me to be like, why? Why is I slept enough? Or, I'm taking care of myself. Why do I feel so tired? And I think a better way forward for me personally is to say, this is a really hard time. And I just need to observe that I feel tired and allow that and forgive it and accept it. Ooh. Yeah, it's really hard. Sense of security gone. It's interesting because any sense of security, I think, any sense of like reliance on external things is always an illusion, right? Because it's all temporary. It's all going to pass away. We're never safe from death. Like we know that intellectually, but I think now we know it a little bit more deeply. Oh yeah, so many feelings. All right, sending y'all love today. I hope you can at least a little be encouraged and know that you dwell in divine love and that the divine exists within the core of your own soul, and that you can become the observer, and that with discipline and practice, you can become the observer, that we don't have to be imprisoned in our false selves. All right. Bye, guys.